Rob. This is always one of the worst slots, so thank you firstly for all staying. I think my record minimum for a presentation at the end of an afternoon was 5 people that I presented to, so a much healthier audience here this afternoon. I also, Rob mentioned that you don't normally do 4 presentations in the afternoon. I was going to say it's my fault, but I'm not entirely sure that it is, because I'm going to talk to you about a product that is part Jamcem and part from a company called CKS Simulator, and the owner of the company CKS Simulator is a gentleman called Emilio, and he emailed me a couple of weeks ago and said, "Have you seen there's a conference in London? Shall we go, shall we present?" So I said, "Yeah, let's do it." And so I started preparing the presentation and I sent it to him and he agreed it. And then he sent me an email back to say, "Oh, by the way, I'm not going." So it was Emilio's idea. This is the extra presentation that was added on. So I'm speaking both for Jamcem and for CKS Simulator this afternoon. But if you want to blame anyone for the extra half hour in the room, it's Emilio's fault and not mine. So we're going to talk about kiln operations development. So it's about operations development, and within that package is the kiln simulator that Emilio's developed. When I started Jamcem in 2011, one of the principles was to be an independent consultant. Like Kevin mentioned earlier, it's something that our customers value very highly, in as much as when we provide recommendations, we don't recommend one supplier's equipment over another. And so we didn't want to, and I've been approached a number of times about being an agent for a company or promoting somebody's equipment, and I've always refused to do it, because that independence is very important to our customers, and that's how we gain sales. So you may ask now why I've sold out, if you like, and I'm working with another company, which is CKS Simulator. So Jamcem is a consulting company. I would challenge anyone to find a job in the cement industry that we can't do. We have a team of about 20 semi-retired cement industry experts, ranging from geologists and chemists through mining engineers, all the way through process mechanical, but also people from the finance function, and we have a couple of former kiln burners within the group. So I think we have a team that can cover just about any inquiry that would be sent to us. And Emilio has developed a kiln simulator. Emilio used to work for Holcim and was involved with their kiln simulator, which they used internally. So Emilio came to me and said about us working with them to promote the kiln simulator. So normally, like I said, I would have kind of turned the opportunity down, but I saw within what Emilio has with the kiln simulator an opportunity to provide a new service, and what we try and do in Jamcem is develop new services, or try and think about the whole business and develop a new service that we can provide to cement manufacturers. So I saw an opportunity to use the kiln simulator as part of a bigger training package for cement plants, and certainly in terms of kiln burning strategy and kiln operational strategy. So the package that we've put together that I'm going to talk about today, so we've focused on kiln operations, but it's not just the kiln burners, it's everybody that's involved with the kiln operation process. There are a number of different packages which I'll talk about, but it's a mixture of the classroom-based training, some group discussion, and that's one of the key things that I think is important and different about this, and then the hands-on simulator, which is like the kind of final product that you're left with once we've done the training product. The simulator and the training is adapted to your plant and your needs. The simulator is customized to your plant and your different fuel types, your raw mix. And within the simulator itself, there are a number of different operational scenarios that the kiln operators can train themselves on. So instead of being let loose on the kiln, they can encounter different operational scenarios on the simulator to learn how to deal with those events. And then finally, the software belongs to the plant. So some of the other simulators that are available at the moment You have to book time in advance to use the simulator. And as we know on a cement plant, things change from day to day. So if you've booked your slot for the next day for 5 operators and then something happens on the plant, you've missed your opportunity and you may have to wait for another 2 or 3 weeks. So the software and the simulation software is available all of the time to be used on the plant. So unfortunately, you probably can't read that at the back, or maybe not even at the front. So what are the current issues with kiln operations in cement plants? And this is based on a lot of the cement plants that we visit. We don't do much in the UK, we don't do anything in America, but a lot of our work is in the Middle East and Far East. But I think a number of these points are relevant to the global cement industry. So in terms of human resources, there are certainly less people on cement plants nowadays, and there's certainly less people in the control room. Many kiln operators, certainly on the plants when I was working in Blue Circle and Lafarge, these guys have been in the control room for 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. Huge amount of experience, they've seen it all. And these people, when headcount was reduced, were quite often the first people to leave on early retirement. And you're letting 40 years experience just walk out of the door without people being developed. In terms of kiln burners, there's not really any kind of formalised training for kiln operators, and there doesn't another kind of position that seems to have disappeared within the cement industry is a kiln burning champion. So somebody who is overseeing the kiln burners, seeing how they're performing, perhaps coaching them in a coaching role. From a technical perspective, things have changed. So obviously we've talked a lot in this conference about alternative fuels. So there's different fuels which change the burning parameters of the kiln. Lack of functioning instrumentation. So we go to plants, we've been to plants in the Middle East where they're burning gas and they have no back-end oxygen analyzer, no calciner oxygen analyzer, and are running the plant just off a preheater exit oxygen, which is clearly no control, but also highly dangerous as well. So lack of instrumentation. Often in single plant operations, so companies that only have one plant, when you have the same people being there for a long time, a lot of people accept, for example, that the instruments aren't working. It's too much like hard work to find a solution, and people lose their drive to find the engineering solution. Often, again, in these smaller companies, there's nobody, especially if the older, more experienced people have left, there's nobody to train these people in the problem-solving process. And quite often we find incorrectly tuned process control systems. So there's technical changes, there's human resource issues, and then operations. And this is one area that our product or our service, if you like, tries to focus on by selecting the people that we would recommend for this course. So in operations in kiln burning, there's too many fingers in the pie. And if you think about the poor kiln, the guy operating the kiln, he's responsible for throughput, he's responsible for quality, he's responsible for alternative fuel substitution rate, he's responsible for environment. So in a daytime, and I'm guilty of this because I've been a process engineer from a technical sense, I've been a production manager, I've been a plant manager. So you have a guy sitting in the control room, and production manager comes to him and he has one thing that he wants production, or the plant manager comes in, why isn't the alternative fuels rate higher? The quality guy comes in, he wants something different, the environmental guy. So this guy is being bombarded from all different sides, and quite often he's being told what to do by people who don't really know how to operate the kiln and who've never done it before. And this leads to no clear kiln burning strategy. This guy is being told that we want minimum emissions, perfect quality, high throughput and high alternative fuels substitution rate. So this guy he's not been given a clear kiln burning strategy, he gets unclear messages, and I think to some degree the kiln burner, the position of a kiln burner within the cement plant is highly undervalued. This guy is the one that makes you the money. His decisions that he makes in terms of the throughput and the alternative fuels, that's where the money is made. And I think over time, the position of the kiln burner has become undervalued. We also find a lot of pyroprocessing systems being operated in manual. Again, this is quite often the case in the Middle East, where because the instruments don't work, the control system won't work. So the control system gets turned off and the plants are running manual, which tend to lead to higher than expected fuel consumption, bypass systems which aren't operated correctly, a lower throughput, and then potential equipment, there's a word missing off there, potential equipment damage by, for example, refractories, by overfueling the kiln. So what do operators need? They need to understand the process, the chemistry and the quality objectives. They need to understand process control loops and how each of these control loops interact with each other. They need to be able to deal with different scenarios. Is there in-leaking air? Is there a different quality fuel that comes through? Highly variable raw materials. They need to gain confidence in the system instead of being thrown in at the deep end into new situations, especially if there's no support around them. They need to be able to identify what are the problems and to feed back effectively. Again, we'll talk about this. They need a clear plant kiln burning strategy. What is our objective? Are we sold out? And do we need to maximise clinker production? Are we in a slower market where we're trying to maximise or minimise fuel costs through maximising alternative fuel rates? And they need a clear management chain of command. So they want to know, when I have 5 people coming into me today to tell me to change the parameters, which is the one that I listen to. And I think also they need to understand the financial results of their operational changes. So they need to understand, if they're being told to increase certain alternative fuels, how they can have a financial impact upon the business. So what we've developed with CKS is a mixture of training and the use of the CKS simulator. So what we're trying to do is develop the operators, but also develop the other team that's involved with the kiln operation. So you see I put the key players here is production, process, quality, maintenance. Got quality twice, I don't know why I've got carried away on quality. So we plan to have, initially when we start the training, is some process training. So we're talking about from the quarry through blending, integral milling, and then into the kiln operation. So this is classroom-based training in terms of the process technology training. And what we suggest when we do this is that it's not just the kiln operators, but we involve people from each of these different departments. So all of the stakeholders in the production department. And when we've had that classroom training, what we encourage is we also try, we develop what we want to have as the kiln burning strategy from the plant. And it gives everybody that's involved with the kiln burning process, so those production process, quality, environment people, their opportunity to develop the plant-wide operational strategy. So it's clear for the kiln burners what exactly their role is and what the plant is trying to achieve. And then following on from that, the training with the personnel from Jamcem and CKS on the actual use of the simulator itself. So what we've done is we've tried to bring together the opportunity for the kiln burners to use a simulator, but at the same time develop that kiln burning strategy with all of the stakeholders from the plant. So just looking at the simulator itself, the simulator is adapted to your plant configuration. So we can do these are just some examples of ones that have been done. So 4-stage preheater, different variations of calciner systems. We can even model or put together a simulator with a planetary cooler as opposed to a grate cooler. And it's also within there we also put in the different chemistry, so the chemistry for your kiln, also your clinker targets. Any range of alternative fuels can be put into the model, we model, or the simulator takes into account chloride and sulfate and build-ups in leaking air. So all of the inputs and the way that your plant operates goes into the model that builds the simulator. And there is a kind of, once the model is built, before we do the training, there is a verification of the model by the plant to ensure that the simulator behaves in the same way as your own plant. Also within the simulator are a number of kind of pre-programmed scenarios. So again, this is where the operator can test himself out on, for example, fluctuations in kiln feed quality, increase of production, increase of alternative fuels rate, different scenarios that will say that will allow him to deal with the situation, or maybe not deal with the situation, but learn from that simulation before he's doing it live on the kiln system himself. You can do group training sessions, so quite often we get a number of the operators in maybe during the kiln shutdown, and allow them to use the simulator as a group. And we also, when the operators are using the simulator itself, there is a kind of score. So it starts off at 100%, and it rates the operator's achievement in terms of reaching the objectives within that specific scenario that they're testing themselves on. So, like I said, it's a customized simulator, so it's specific to your plant. And I think some of the other products on the market where you have to book your time on them, it is certainly not tailored to your plant. It doesn't use the same fuels. It may not have the same geometry and the same number of cyclones, or whatever the situation may be. So we start off with the customized equipment. We then customize it for your raw materials, and then we have a number of these different tools in there. So we have the simulations. We can change the speed of the simulation, so you could do it in real time, or you could speed it up. You can speed it up to 10 times, so you can actually see very quickly the effect of putting an extra 10 tonne an hour in the kiln and not changing the fuel. You can save the simulation, you can come back to it later. The simulator provides quality information every 15 minutes. So as you're doing your simulation, you're getting the feedback on the changes in the clinker quality. So it really is tailored to your process, and allows the operators to develop themselves without having to do it in a live situation on the kiln itself. I mentioned Emilio, who is the guy that developed the simulator. The person who's doing the training for Jamcem is a guy called Kevin McAdam. Kevin is a former kiln burner. In fact, he started, I think, sweeping up the yard originally in one of the cement plants in Blue Circle, and developed into a kiln operator. He was part of an alternative fuels implementation team for Blue Circle for a number of years, and then has done a lot of commissioning and training work for KHD, and I think he's also done some work for Lursha. One of the benefits of using Kevin in the training is that he's been there and he's done it. He's a former kiln operator, and so when you're training people, for example, training a kiln operator, quite often it's very easy for them to say, well, it's all well and good you as a chemical engineer trying to train me, but how many kilns have you actually operated? So the benefit with having Kevin doing it is he has and is a kiln operator. So he's training the guys, and he has the credibility with the people within the group to say, I've done this, so this is the way it should be done. One of the other features of the simulator is an automated control system. So when the kiln burners are using the system, they use it in manual, so they can train themselves in manual and they can see the effects of the changes they make. And then we have a number of different control loops which they can either turn on or turn off. And they can run a simulation without having to do anything, but with these control loops on, so that they can learn and understand how the different control loops work on the Kiln system. I talked about the different packages. A company could decide just to buy the simulator, which is fine. And when a company just wants a simulator, we would provide a 3-day kind of train-the-trainer package, so that the person on site can then knows how to operate the system and can train the kiln burners. And then we have a customised and a high-level packages, which increases the amount of training that we do and this development of the kiln burning strategy for the plant. And we could tailor any kind of offering to any kind of plant dependent on what they want. I don't know why I think Rob's got the right font on this laptop, so that's why the Jamcem's gone a bit amok. But just in terms of the summary of the benefits that we believe adding our training on top of the CKS simulator is that we can provide a customised simulator for your plant, so it mimics exactly the operations of your pyroprocessing processes. We provide the trainer option and the material and the simulator, so that this product is there for you to use again and again into the future. The simulator is focused on the optimization of the kiln. I think also some of the other products that are available are more focused on the interlocks of the process and how to start up the kiln and what happens in the kiln process. This simulator is very much focused on optimization of the kiln. It might be optimization of throughput, it might be minimization of fuel consumption, it might be optimization of alternative fuels rate, but it's very much focused on kiln optimization. The trainers, so with Kevin and other kiln burners within the group, they actually have credibility. They can talk to the kiln burners with confidence to say, I've been there, I'm a kiln operator, I have a right to be here to train you because I've been there and I've done it. The simulations can be saved for later, and the simulations provide a wide different range of conditions. With this simulator there is a one-off fee to buy it. When I mentioned that some of these other simulators you have to book time in advance to go and use your time slot on the simulator, so you're paying every time you use a simulator. With this product there's just a one-off fee to purchase the software, and then for example if you change your fuels, if you want to update it, then there'll be a very minimal fee to make any changes to the software itself. It's bespoke training, so dependent on what you want and who you want to involve in the training itself, we can change the proposal to you. And I think the most important thing about this is developing this the plant-based common burning strategy, so that the kiln operator gets left alone to do his job without the interference of every different department coming along and telling him to change his kiln operations because that's what they want. So that's why we've joined up with CKS, and we think there's a lot of benefit in bringing our experience and certainly Kevin's and the kiln burning experience together with their simulation. And I don't know if there's anybody still here from Colden. I know there's some guys here from Colden yesterday, but they've certainly bought one of these before I was involved with CKS. So there was a glowing reference from Colden there, and then there's some other customers. There's a Lafarge Holcim customer there, and one in Holcim, Colombia, and I think next week Emilio is installing one at Cemex plant in Spain as well. So we're quite happy if somebody's interested in just a simulator, that's fine. And even if there's cement companies here that aren't interested in either of the products, hopefully the presentation has made you think a little bit more about the role of the kiln burner and developing that common burning strategy for yourselves with or without Jamcem. So, thank you very much.
So thank you very much indeed, Mark. We have a couple of very quick questions. How long does it take to train a competent kiln operator? Briefly.
To be a competent trainer, I would say a couple of years. I would say to have sat on the panel, such as to start with the simulator and then sit on the panel and have the experience of dealing with all the different situations. I think in the old days you'd have a trainee kiln burner sitting in the control room with a more experienced guy, and it would probably be 2 or 3 years before he was let loose on his own to run the plant. Right.
Okay. How to include or integrate the APC element on the training? APC?
Control systems, like someone
automated process control.
Advanced process control system, yeah.
Advanced process control.
Emilio's quite clear on this, in as much as this is very much a training tool to develop kiln operators in their understanding of how a kiln reacts, and how the different parameters react with each other. And that the module that I showed with the control loops is there to demonstrate how the control loops should work on the plant. So we're not selling a process control system. This is about developing people and their understanding of the process. Now he is developing some control systems, but I think they're about 2 years off at the minute.
Okay, so this feeds into the final question we're going to address, and that is, what place is there for local plant kiln operators when companies like Cemex and others are moving towards remote kiln operation?
I would wait to see how successful that is before I would sort of see it as a trend that may well happen in the throughout the cement industry. I think it's something, to me, it's something that's been talked about for a long time, and I haven't seen it. And we know of, I guess everybody who knows of, big equipment suppliers that have gone into O&M contracts and they can remotely advise or control from the control rooms. But when you go to those plants, there's still a lot of people in the control room. So I would think that it may be possible for a big company like Cemex, but on the flip side, if you go to Saudi Arabia, for example, there's 17 cement plants there, and each one of them is an independent cement producer. So, there's lots of smaller players around who will always need the kiln burner on the operator.
Okay. Somebody's asked how much does it cost, but I'm going to let them approach you directly, sure. And I'm sure you'll give them the full lowdown. That's all the time we have for questions, but at the very, very end of our programme, let's once again thank Mark Mutter for his very much.